Hey there, horror fans. My name is Brian Finnerty. I am a contributor at Macabre Daily. Um, by day, I work as a mental health therapist. By night, trying to become a aspiring horror writer. And I'm really excited to be talking with Patrick Maroney here today. Um, Patrick is the author of a brand new book called Escaping Death, the unauthorized story behind the Final Destination movies. It's being published by Bear Manor Media and is going to be available later this month, April 2025. This is actually Patrick's second book. In 2021, he wrote another book called It All Began with a Scream, which is obviously about the Scream franchise. Um, and wearing this shirt was actually a total coincidence today, but it worked out perfectly. Um, the Patrick and I have actually met before. We met last year at this really cool event in Philadelphia where we both live. Another fellow therapist had hosted this event on the intersection of queer identities and the horror genre. Um, we actually got to watch the original Scream with this big fun group of LGBTQI plus like horror super fans, which is pretty much the best way to watch a scary movie. So when I heard Patrick was releasing this new book, I was really excited to get a chance to talk to him. So, hey, Patrick, thank you so much for being willing to chat with us about this.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Good seeing you again, Brian.
Absolutely. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Pretty good. The book is coming out and the sun is shining. It's warming up, so can't complain.
Absolutely. Um, so I figured we'd start off with just asking you, can you like share in your own words a little bit about what this new book is all about?
Yeah, so similar to the Scream book, this Final Destination book I did because Final Destination has traumatized our entire generation. Everyone knows the logger truck scene. They have developed quirks. I know I've developed superstitions based off of this franchise because
Me
of
too.
it's everything that is your everyday life that could kill you. And so I was looking for a follow-up project, and Final Destination was one of those films that was kind of the bridge between the 90s slashers and the early 2000s supernatural. It kind of bridged that gap. It's not really a slasher movie, it's not really supernatural,
Mhm.
but it fits right there in the middle. And it's kind of an elevated horror movie, it's high concept. So I want to really delve into it about, the effect it's had on all of us. I knew that the 25th anniversary of this franchise was also coming up. I've got to make it not a trend to always do 25th anniversary books, but this one warranted it. So, yeah, I spoke with over 50 members of the cast and filmmaking community from the franchise to offer readers an insider's look behind the scenes of these movies. So they'll feel like they were there with stories that only the actors and the filmmakers would know from behind the scenes of the movies. And
Mhm.
hopefully, it will also give a little bit more of an understanding and appreciation for what it takes to scare the crap out of all of us.
Absolutely. Um, that's an interesting way to like choose to tell the story of a series of movies is doing the interviews with people who actually were involved in making it. Um, did you find, are there any like particular benefits or drawbacks to kind of telling the story of a movie that way through other people's stories?
Yeah, well, I think the benefit is that you're getting firsthand accounts
Mhm.
of what it was like to do these movies, especially the Final Destination movies. They use a lot of very practical effects. It's not a
Mhm.
super CGI heavy franchise. So, like in the first movie, when they were doing the opening premonition on the airplane,
Mhm.
the actors were actually on a fuselage set that was being jostled around using a gimbal that was controlled by a joystick. And when the third movie they rode that roller coaster 35 times. So like they're going to be able to tell you exactly what it was like and what they were feeling on that day and if they have PTSD from it.
I would imagine. So, like any looks of terror or if the actors appear nauseous in any of those scenes, it's probably
That's
very
real.
real.
Yeah, very real.
Yeah. Um, doing this story that way by talking to like 50 plus people that were involved in the movies. Um, did any of the interviews, did anyone you talked to particularly like stand out to you, or kind of share anything that really surprised you about the movies?
Yeah, I think the thing that surprised me the most was how open the late Tony Todd was in
Mhm.
his interview. When I interviewed him in the summer of 2023, he provided his what motivated him with the character of Bloodworth and what he drew upon for the character, which he hadn't even shared with some of the other filmmakers
Mhm.
beforehand. And, that's a mysterious character in the franchise. So, you know, everyone has been like, oh, is he death itself or the devil? Or is he, this or that? And Tony Todd very definitively said, this is what I drew on. It's nothing that I think the majority of people thought it was.
Mhm.
So that was really interesting. And I have to say, honestly, also, this book would not have been possible without producer Craig Perry.
Mhm.
He's been with the franchise from the very beginning. And he's the person that is living, sleeping, breathing, eating this franchise through the last 25 years. He's been doing the day-to-day work on these movies since it started in 2000, 1999 when they filmed it. And just without the level of participation and trust that he has given me
Mhm.
over the last couple of years as we worked on this, the book would not be anything like it is. It would not have been a complete book if he had not wanted to participate or if he was not as open and as willing to share information in his stories and um, provide information and connect me with people. It really was a huge asset. He was a big help in making this book.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine, like you said, yeah, you can't write a book this way unless people are willing and eager to kind of collaborate and tell their story.
Yeah, the one good thing that I've found between the two books, now granted, these aren't movies that people have had horrible experiences on, but everyone has fond memories of working on these movies. And so they're more than happy to talk with you about it and reminisce. Because that's really what it is. It's like talking about like our college days or something like that. Like to them, they're it's remembering something that was a good time in their life and something that is memorable for them. So there are a lot of people connected with it were very happy and willing to speak with me, which is how I was able to connect with 50 people, both in
Yeah.
front of it and behind the camera.
Absolutely. Yeah, that reminds me, it's like it's not related to Final Destination, but I just saw a clip of someone interviewing Paris Hilton actually about like House of Wax, which I think recently had an anniversary too. And
Mhm.
they just asked her randomly about it on a red carpet. And you could just like you just saw her eyes light up. It's probably not something that these actors necessarily think about every single day, but like when someone brings it up, I have to imagine it was probably a really fun type of movie to be involved with.
Yeah, and that's the thing with these movies is the franchise, along with Craig, but also the directors and other producers. Really, the sets were it was very harmonious. There wasn't a lot of, drama behind the scenes with it. Everyone really enjoyed themselves.
Mhm.
And I talk about in the book, the cast, a lot of them are still friends to this day,
Mhm.
across different movies. It's really like a family atmosphere. There's been like AJ Cook is on Criminal Minds and was the lead in Final Destination 2,
Mhm.
and Nick DeGusto was guest starring on Criminal Minds and was in Final Destination 5.
Okay.
Even though they weren't in the same movie, they connected and bonded over that when they were working on Criminal Minds together. And
Mhm.
one of the actresses said it's like, Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas, all the cousins are coming over and it's a big family reunion when you meet someone else that was in a different movie and everything. It's just it's a bond that they all have from working on these movies.
I'm imagining them getting together and just like, oh my God, how did you die? Wait, how did you die?
Well, that's what they were saying. Nicholas said was, we were two of the five premonitions, so
Mhm.
like they were bonded even more because of that. And going into these movies, asking how you're going to die has to be one of the first questions
Oh
because
yeah,
that's so much of what people remember about these movies.
absolutely. Yeah. So it's a super obvious question. I'm sure like everybody asks you, but you can't talk about these movies without asking, like, do you have a favorite death? Um,
You know, I it's hard because I don't have one particular one.
Mhm.
But I do have a couple. And actually over the course of working on the book, my appreciation for some other deaths have um risen. So it's changed a lot. But there's so many good deaths and sequences in this franchise from you can't talk about the Final Destination movies without talking about Terry's bus hit in the first movie.
Oh yeah.
That, I don't care when you saw this movie, that's going to scare the crap out of you and it's going to catch you off guard just the way they did it. And they did it
Like
so,
cliche now, but I feel like then it was like groundbreaking.
but it's still so effective to this
Uh-huh.
day. Like, and they actually initially set up to film additional angles and they're like we don't need to, we need this one angle and they figured out how to do it very mathematically and it was very, I'm not a filmmaker so I don't want to overspeak, but it was very simple and it wasn't a ton of cuts and whatnot to make it all come together. And in the second one there's some really good ones with Tim's death with the glass and then the barbed wire at the end. The tanning beds, and the third one is just brutal. It's not a death scene, but the car wash scene in the fourth movie is a favorite one. I know the gymnastics is one that everyone remembers in the fifth one. But again, that the LASIK eye, I don't know about other people. I have an eye thing, so as good as the gymnastics stays with you. And I haven't had LASIK, and I don't wear glasses as much as I should, but still that freaks me out. So yeah,
I'm sticking with glasses after seeing that.
yeah. Actually, one of the special effects guy had LASIK eye surgery like a couple months after they made that, and he was like, it probably wasn't the best idea.
Absolutely. Um, you mentioned earlier the idea of like this, like one of the things that's so meaningful about this franchise, and I feel like for even people who haven't seen the movies, they've just like heard about some of the deaths and they've just become part of like this cultural consciousness that we all have.
Mhm.
There's just certain things we're like terrified of now. Um, did did any of the people who made the movies talk about like their deaths kind of sticking with them or kind of influencing them?
Not necessarily their deaths. The one that did speak about her death was Linda Boyd, who played Nora in Final Destination 2.
Mhm.
She said that getting in an elevator that's overly packed is something that she doesn't feel comfortable with, and she's always kind
Mhm.
of aware of that. But the actors aren't immune. There will be other deaths or sequences in either the movie they're in or other movies that affect them just as much. You know, the pool scene in the fourth one was another one that a couple people pointed out that was um, especially terrifying for them being trapped and unable to get off of the bottom of a pool. So yeah, they've definitely they're in the same boat as us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, as I mentioned earlier, my day job is as a mental health therapist. So, like anytime I'm watching really any movie, but particularly in the horror genre, I love kind of looking for those mental health themes and kind of viewing movies through that lens. Um, I wonder, uh, uh, is that anything that people talked about in your conversations?
Yeah, and I think that usually and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but usually when it comes to horror movies, it's more about like the trauma,
Mhm.
as the infamous Jamie Lee Curtis meme of all the times she mentioned the word trauma in her Halloween press tour, demonstrated. But I think the Final Destination movies have they're a lot more psychological than some horror movies. And right from the beginning, the filmmakers really set out to play with your mind. You know, in the first movie, it does show the psychological toll of living with this does to Devon Sawa's character Alex when he's in the cabin towards the end and he kind of starts to lose it. Um, you know, and he's thinking death is trying to get him with tetanus. And in the sequel, when Clear has voluntarily committed herself. So these films um, very overtly deal with, I think, some of the mental health and psychological aspects of it. But the filmmakers also wanted to make sure that they traumatized the audience. To be blunt, they knew what they wanted to do and they wanted to terrify all of us. And um, they're a little bit sadistic for that, and that's why we love them. But
Would you
from
say
the
they
way
succeeded?
exactly. But from the way that the look of the first movie was, they didn't want to look like a normal horror movie. So, you know, the sky isn't the same color that movies in the like 90s horror movies necessarily look like. It's a little bit darker.
Oh, wow.
Um, you know, they created optical illusions so that, you know, when the characters are walking down the fuselage, you know, it's bigger at the front of it, but as they get to the end of it, the pathway actually got lower. Kerr Smith said he almost had to like duck down to get into the plane set. And, you know, so that they did a lot of little things, but their main goal at the end of the day was that when you walked out of that theater, this would stick with you
Mhm.
and that it would be with you when some of these, you know, situations might arise, like the logger truck that everyone knows and loves.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned trauma. Like, I think one of the interesting things about these movies is how a lot of horror, you get the trauma at the end of the movie, whereas Final Destination, it's like the opening scene is the trauma.
Mhm.
And it's then seeing how people kind of play off of that throughout the rest of the film.
And and it's interesting because, you know, talking about the first movie, they all kind of react a little bit differently. Like
Mhm.
Kristen Cloak's character, who is the teacher in the movie, you know, she's terrified and feels a lot of guilt about it. You know, Carter is, you know, very much like I lived, and you know, it just kind of pumps him up a little bit. Doesn't feel like he cheated death at all. You know, and then some of the others are dealing with it in their own ways. So you get to see kind of a menagerie of different coping mechanisms in that movie. And you see that in all of the sequels as well. You know, not everyone is going to react the same. And I think the fifth one, are we allowed to give spoilers for movies that
Yeah.
are over a decade
I
old?
would say go ahead. Watch at your own risk.
Okay. You know, the fifth movie, really shows the mental toll when they learn about the take a life to save your life
Yeah.
twist, and what that would do to a person. So um, th that's interesting because this series asks a lot of big, heady philosophical questions, but it's wrapped up as a nice little scary popcorn movie.
Mhm.
So it's like it almost kind of backdoors you a little bit, with a Trojan horse into thinking about these larger questions and universe and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's just what's so cool about the horror genre in general is you can enjoy it on two levels. It can just be this fun movie that you watch, or if you choose to, you can read so much into it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, as you mentioned, you're releasing this in the lead up to the new movie coming out, Final Destination Bloodline, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know how privy you've been to anything related to that movie, but is there anything, are you looking forward to it? How are you feeling about that movie's release?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I spoke with the writers of the movie, Guy Busick and Laurie Evans Taylor, along with John Watts, who came up with the story. He's the director of the Spider-Man trilogy with Tom
Hmm.
Holland and Wolves with Brad Pitt and George Clooney. He is also a producer on it. So I spoke with all of them, and you know, when you get to like the sixth movie in a franchise, there's not much that they do to try to reinvent it. It's kind of a, if it's making money and it's not broken, we're not going to fix it. But Craig Perry and his producing partner, Sheila Hanahan Taylor, really with this and the story that John came up with and Guy and Laurie wrote, like they're completely changing things. The trailer's out there, so they know that there's, a time difference between when things happened and it deals with like a family unit. This is the first movie that has had a female co-writer in the franchise, so there's a lot that they're reinventing with this movie, and I think what I know about it is exciting, and I think everyone's going to really have fun with it. And it was filmed in IMAX, so if we were traumatized before and just regular screen, IMAX is going to really scare us.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to see it. Um, is So I think in terms of for people who are really like interested in your book, um, where can they find it if they're interested in ordering?
So, like you mentioned, it's published by Bear Manor Media,
Mhm.
but they can order it anywhere online. Amazon, Target, their local indie bookstore. I know some people are avoiding the bigger stores right now. You can go to Bear Manor Media's website directly and order it. It's available everywhere that you get fine books.
Well, cool. Well, hey, I think that's all I have for you today, but thank you so much, seriously, for chatting with me and can't wait to read your book and can't wait to see the new movie and then I guess 20 years from now see your follow-up on the next six movies.
Hopefully, there's another six movies.
All
Thanks,
right,
Brian.
Patrick. Thanks so much. Bye.
Yep.